Hi there, I'm Laura and this is Ainsley, and we are going to make a bunny using a critter creation kit. So this is the packet you'll get, and it comes with the instructions and the birth certificate and our bunny's tail, which is a pom-pom, and some yarn that's already threaded, and stuffing for our bunny, and our knit square. All the squares are going to look different. They're either knit or crocheted. And so what you're going to do to start is put it on the table in front of you with the tag closest to you, and then flip it over. And this is where we're going to start working. So you grab your yarn, and we're going to imagine cutting it in half. You're going to stitch from the right to the left across the middle of the square, and the top half, the bluer part in this square, is going to become the bunny's head and ears, and the bottom part, the green part, is going to become the bunny's bottom. So all we're doing is stitching across and doing nice even stitches up and down. It's called a running stitch, to weave the yarn all the way through across from one side to the other. So you're going to leave a little tail at the end, as you see Ainsley did, and continue to weave all the way across. She'll do a couple stitches and then she'll pull it through. If you're right-handed, you'll probably start on the right side, and if you're left-handed, you'll probably start on the left side, so that you can stitch it more easily. Now all the squares are going to be a little bit different. This square has the rainbow effect, and the yarn is the darkest of the colors, so you can see it better while we're stitching, but a lot of you will probably get a solid color square, and then when you're stitching the thread through, it will totally disappear as you do it. So this contrast, hopefully you can see what we're doing a little bit better, but yours, you won't be able to see the stitches after you've gone through. You just want to make the stitches nice and close together, up and down, all the way across, cutting it in half. Now once you've gotten to the other side, we're going to follow directions and make a triangle. So from where your yarn is, you're going to sew up to the top and the middle. Now this part is a little bit tricky, because in the middle you get to follow the lines from where the knitting was, but on making the triangle, you just have to do the best you can to do a nice straight line, picking up nice close stitches all the way across up to the top. And the little triangles on the edge are going to become the bunny's ears, and then the triangle in the middle is going to become the bunny's head. So as you're stitching, you want to do a nice straight line if you can, and land right in the middle so that the bunny's ears are even, because sometimes it would be easy to do a little curve and end up with really big triangles on the edges. Ooh, so Ainsley's up at the top. Now we're going to go down to where the yarn came in and weave it just the same to complete our triangle. So if you accidentally make the triangles on the edges a little bit big, then you'll have giant bunny ears and a little head. And if you accidentally make those side triangles a little small, you'll end up with little bitty bunny ears and a big head. So all bunnies are going to be cute. Do the best you can to do a nice straight line, but don't worry too much about it. You just want them to be even from side to side, so that the ears are the same size no matter how big they are. So now you've gotten all the way down to the end. You might want to pull that longer end a little bit more, so that we'll have a little bit more yarn to work with. All right, so now that it's pretty even, you're gonna pull both ends of the yarn at the same time and kind of push against the fabric, and that's gonna scrunch up the bunny to make his head. So you see the little pocket in the middle is his head, and Ainsley's gonna put a little bit of stuffing in his head in the middle, and she kind of uses her thumbs to push it in, and then you tighten it up and you push the yarn in. You kind of see how much stuffing you want. You want it to be enough stuffing so it looks like head, but not so much that it's busting through and you can see the stuffing through. So I think that looks great. And then once it's as tight as you want it to be, you'll take both ends and you'll pull them tight and you'll tie them kind of like a shoelace, one across the other. And you want that to be nice and tight, not so tight that you break the yarn, but tight enough that the bunny's head, there you go, comes together and you don't have any stuffing coming out the back. Like that. So now you see you've got little ears and you've got a little head. So you're going to take the shorter of the two and look at the back of the bunny's head and see if there's any stuffing coming out the back. If there is, you might want to put a couple of stitches with the shorter of the two pieces of yarn, just so that the stuffing doesn't fall out. And he's nice and solid and can be snuggled and not have any fear of his brains falling out the back. So he's just going to do a little brain surgery here and close up that hole even more. So when you're doing this part, you have to be super careful not to loop the yarn around his neck or loop the yarn around his ear, because then you would end up with yarn that you can see. So she's being really careful just to do little stitches back and forth on the back of his head. It doesn't take much. And you can adjust his ears a little bit to make sure that they're even. It looks good. Are you happy with that? You can do another stitch in the back if you want. Pull his ears together a little bit more. Sure. Whatever makes him look more bunnyish. So then you'll take the shorter piece and kind of tuck it, there you go, in the back. And we're gonna kind of hide it in the bunny's body, because that green part is going to become the bunny's body. So she's gonna stick it back through the head, have it come out in the middle, and then just leave it inside, because that's where the stuffing's gonna go for his body. Great. So now we're gonna take the longer piece and thread the needle again. And we're gonna stitch the two sides of his body together. See how they're nice and flat and square? So you kind of line up the little lines, and as close as you can to the head, you start there and you do little loopy stitches all the way down his back to close up his body. And this, oh, watch his ear. That's a good example, because that happens a lot. When you're close to his head, you have to be careful not to accidentally give him an extra necklace or loop his ear in when you're stitching it up. So you have nice tight stitches. The smaller the stitches, if you can do one row attached to the next row all the way down, then the stitches will kind of disappear. And again, Ainsley has the darker color thread, so hers is going to show up. But if your thread matches your yarn square, then you won't be able to see it, and it'll be hidden as you stitch it up. The other thing to keep in mind is Ainsley has made a lot of bunnies, so you probably won't be working as fast as she is at any of these steps. So feel free to pause the video or rewind it when we get ahead of you, because you want to do nice small stitches so that your bunny is really secure and you don't have to worry about him falling apart. Or you're just going to stitch all the way down his back, and then when you get to the end, we'll stuff the body. And just do a nice slow stitches that are close together so that we don't lose any stuffing off of his back, and so that he lines up really well and doesn't end up crooked. Although everybody's different, so they'll turn out well no matter what you do. All right, so now that you're down, you've sewn up the bunny's body. You're gonna stuff him. And you probably aren't gonna use all the stuffing that we gave you, but you might. Depends on how big of a bunny that you want. So yeah, keep that old tail inside, and we'll just hide him. And then stuff in more stuffing until he's as big as you want him to be, and the proportion of the head and the body look good to you. There's no right or wrong. So we'll stuff him a little bit. And then you're gonna take your yarn and you're going to stitch, just like you did in the middle, all the way around the very edge of the bunny. And what you can do is stitch a little bit, and then right before you close it up, you can add a little bit more stuffing if you feel like you need it. So Ainsley's gonna do little bitty stitches, just like she did all the way through when she was sewing up the head, right at the edge. If you stitch farther in, you might end up with big bunchy lumps of the fabric. But if you stitch right on the edge and just get each of the loops, then it'll be a nice smooth scunch at the bottom. And she does a couple stitches and then pulls it through, because when you're done stitching the edge all the way around, you're gonna pull it tight just like you pulled the neck tight, and it'll have a nice little circle for the bunny bottom. And then we'll mostly cover that up with his tail. And it's a little harder to stitch right around the tag, but go nice and slow. Just get every stitch all the way around the edge. Before you tighten him all the way, you want to make sure you have all the stuffing in there that you want, because you can add it now, but you can't add it once you pull it tight. And once you've stitched all the way around and you've pulled it tight, then just like the back of the head, you might want to do a little extra stitch across the back of his bottom. Make sure that there's no stuffing showing and that it's nice and closed up. Sometimes it needs stitches. If you have a bigger square, you'll probably need to do a couple stitches across the edge. For a square this size, you may or may not. Put in one or two. Won't hurt anything. It looks good. You like it? Okay, so now we're going to make a little knot so that your bunny doesn't come undone. Thread the needle, Ainsley's favorite part. Poke it through close to where the yarn came out, and you're gonna leave a little loop. It's a little sewing knot. There you go. So you have a loop, and then you poke the needle through the loop, and then you pull it tight and have a new loop. And then you do that a couple of times, where you have a loop and you put the needle through, and you make a new loop and you pull it tight. Doing that 3 or 4 times is plenty, and that will be a nice tight knot so that your bunny won't come undone. And then when, at that point, just pull the string at the end. That's good. And now we're gonna hide the end. Instead of just cutting it off and having the knot maybe come undone, we're gonna hide the yarn. So really close to your knot, push it all the way into the bunny, and we're gonna pull it through to the other side, out his nose or his arm or something. Guess he doesn't have any arms. So you've pulled it through, and now we're gonna cut it off over there. Be careful not to cut your bunny, and even his little ear. Cut that off so that the yarn is hidden inside the bunny. And now we'll give him a little fluff. He looks pretty good. And let's add his tail. So take the pom-pom, and he has 2 pieces of yarn coming off the pom-pom. So you're gonna thread one of the pieces of yarn on your needle. And you can think about where you want your bunny tail to be. Some people like to put it kind of up high. Some people want to put it all the way in the back. So see where you think is the cutest, and just poke the needle through where you want it to be, and then bring it back out. And it's okay to do this part a couple of times, excuse me, until you are very happy with the position of the tail. Does that look good? Once you like where it is, you're going to tie a really tight knot, because you don't want your bunny tail to flop around. So do a double knot, just like you knotted his neck. And at this point, you can either cut off those strings so they look like the part of the pom-pom, or you can dive it in on the other side so that it's hidden the way that you did with the other extra pieces of yarn. Just make sure that when you dive it in, it's pretty close to where the knot is, so you don't see that part. And this one, because it's so short, you can pull it through the other side, it's already off. Or cut it off like a pom-pom. And now you just fix his little ears, and he is ready to snuggle. Cute little bunny. If you have any questions, feel free to send us an email or a note on Instagram. And you can get more information on the website, ckcritters.org. We'd love to see a picture of your bunny or a picture of you and your bunny. Hope you enjoyed making him and get to snuggle for a long time.